Greetings, welcome to the Situation Corner, and my name is Elizabeth, your host. Remember, the Situation Corner is a show that tackles and goes deep into the issues that are affecting the young people. Could be politics, could be health-wise, could be entrepreneurship. We all have an opinion, and this is where we air out all our opinions as young people. Today we are going to focus on menstrual health challenges. This is a topic that young people usually do not want to talk about it because they feel they are too ashamed to talk about it, or they feel they are so insecure talking about it, but in turn it affects us in a general perspective. So we have a guest. She's called Patricia, but I'm going to give her a chance to introduce herself.
Hello viewers, my name is Maganda Patricia Gift and I'm a peer educator, basically in the issues of sexual reproductive health and rights. But here today on the show, I am happy to be hosted, and we're going to be talking about menstrual health challenges among the young people in Uganda. Thank you. Happy to be here.
Glad to have you on the show, Patricia. Well, when it comes to menstrual health, people are shy to talk about it, mostly let's say, in our teenagers. We are shy to talk about it because we feel somewhat disgusting, However, as a peer educator, how did you come about it? How did you become a peer educator? Let's start with that.
How I became a peer educator is because I really felt that some of the issues that are really important in the lives of people is about their reproductive health, especially the young people. And you find that these are issues being ignored by the community out there because they believe it's all about the economy, but aspects like this have to be tackled down. And for them to be tackled, people like us have to come up to make the conversations normal. So it inspired me to become a peer educator because I'm passionate about changing.
Thank you very much, Patricia. Now let's talk about menstrual health and menstrual hygiene. We are all going through a pandemic. The first wave came through, the second wave came through. We're expecting a third wave, we're not sure. But we have chosen to ignore some of these things. Menstrual hygiene, provision of sanitary towels. Even we are talking about it. But then we have these young girls all over the place that need sanitary towels, that need education about, or knowledge about sanitary towels or about menstrual health. What is your general perspective about menstrual health and the pandemic, honestly?
My general perspective, I would say, about menstrual health and the pandemic is a lot has changed, times have changed, where you see that students who are used to being in schools, they were used to spending most of their time with their teachers. Yeah. But you find that now parents are being at home with these students, whereby some of the girls are not free to talk about their fathers, about issues around menstrual hygiene. And you find that we have single parents of late.
True.
So in a point where we have single parents, one may ask yourself, how is a girl going to access a pad if they cannot talk to their father about it? So basically you find that we have been doing a lot of peer education around getting the unpopular male perspective of menstrual hygiene, where we have the men involved. So you find that a lot of challenges have been faced during the pandemic, that girls were not able to access pads. People have been using clothes, whereby not everyone knows how to manage these clothes. And why is that? The economy has been down. People did not have jobs who have been laid off. Parents have been laid off, and they cannot really afford these pads for their children. Not forgetting, children do not want to speak out. Because sometimes a parent cannot tell you your menstruation. So even your brother, you're shy to speak about it with your brother. So you find that the poverty rates that have been increased as a result of the pandemic have also caused a big problem in regards to accessing these pads. The materials have been very fast. Shops were closed. We saw that shops were closed. So in the sense that shops were closed, if you did not stock enough in your dormitory or schools were closed at home, you did not stock enough, when they get done, you cannot talk to your brother, you cannot talk to your sister, you cannot talk to anyone. So even the long distances that you need to cover to get to a health center or to go for a youth-friendly service in terms of that are really fast. So it's really been hard altogether.
Out of a realization, we find that the Ministry of Health is not putting much emphasis on menstrual hygiene, are they?
I would say they have tried to put it down. However, we have presented that. I think you have heard about the National School Health Policy.
Yes, there is that, but we'll find out that most of these things we just see them there, let's say the paperwork exactly. And on social media and media itself. But then how are the young people looked out for, or how do these services or whatever they want to do reach out to the young person? The young people in Kawempe, the young people in Mulago, let's say one in Kitgum, are they really considering them? And if they're considering them, how we are not seeing any results? As a peer educator, what do you think should be done?
One, I would say before we get to what should be done, I would really want to acknowledge different organizations that have come out to play a big role in making sure that the young people have access to some of these materials, in making sure that the young people have correct and accurate information in regards to their reproductive health, more so menstrual hygiene. So you find that organizations like Faraja Africa Foundation, we have the Arose Institute of East Africa, have really put in a lot of effort to make sure that they capture the stories of the young people down there in the slum areas, so that they can be able to know which issues are they facing, how can we address these challenges, how can we partner to make sure that we avail these materials to them and be able to help the ministry in the long run to reach out to the hard-to-do areas where they cannot focus on.
Well, it's very, very interesting that a number of organizations have come forth to help the Ministry of Health, Ministry of Gender in helping out these young people when it comes to menstrual hygiene. However, what are some of the challenges that have come forth? Before we even go to the challenges, amidst the pandemic, we've been home. People have come back home. Young kids have been laid off from school, laid off from work, and they're sitting home. And then we'll also go back to the old African setting of us having misconceptions or norms when it comes to menstrual hygiene. As a peer educator, what are some of these norms that you've had, and are they really true? And if they're really true, how have the young people coped up with it? Because ideally, the concept of going to school is to learn some of these things, whether they are factual or not, whether they are helpful to our health or not. So really, as a peer educator, what do you have to say?
Thank you so much for that good question. As a peer educator, I would say we've really faced so many challenges trying to address the day-to-day myths and misconceptions around menstrual hygiene, because there are really many, and even religious beliefs which you cannot really zero down to. However, I would want to highlight out, I think, one of the most commonest misconceptions, where it is said that when a girl is in her menstrual period, she's seen to be unclean, which religions like Muslims believe to be true.
So we've seen a number of school dropouts. That was before the pandemic. But amidst the pandemic, there is also school dropouts, early pregnancies, early marriages. I mean, sometimes you'd find that pads is the cause. One of the reports that, investigative reports that Kanare Mogume did, it was sex for pads. Could be one of the reasons as to why we have high number of teenage pregnancies. What do you have to say about it?
Thank you for that question. About that issue or that matter, I also saw the investigative report that was done by Kanare Mugume on sex for pads. And yes, it has for a long time been a big challenge for especially the young girls in the rural areas, in the remote areas. How has it been happening? You find that the greedy men out there, or the big men in those societies, lie to these girls in exchange for pads, and they want to sleep with them. So you find that if I cannot talk to my mother about a pad, as I am moving and the man spots that I am bleeding with my skirt, they want to lie to me that they will give me a pad, so I follow them. And are you aware that actually many many young girls become pregnant during their periods if they have sex? So many men out there, especially in the rural remote areas, we've seen in Kasese, a story down there, are taking advantage of the women and making them pregnant. So you find that we have early pregnancies coming in, we have early marriages, teenage pregnancies, and even before the pandemic, we still had school dropouts, because yes, that's the issue of silence, because you cannot talk to your elders, you don't want to use your parents, you don't want to use your friends, and these big men are taking advantage of the young girls. So that is how teenage pregnancies is relating with pads, in that it's being an advantage done by most of the men in the areas where young girls lack correct and accurate information around their menstrual health.
So moving on, what do you think, as a peer educator or as fellow young people, what do you think can be done to strive and to see a way that we do not have girls selling their bodies, or girls having sex because they need to get pads, or girls rushing into marriage because they do not have money, the money that they could use for buying pads, girls getting shamed all the time because their skirt or their dresses are stained with blood. What do you think is the way forward amidst this pandemic? Because, I mean, people are laid off from work. We all know, whether we are working or not, there is that point in time where you do not have a pad in your house as a girl. You do not have a pad in your pocket. What do you think can be done?
I would say one of the most big problems before we get away forward is the lack of information amongst many young girls out there. So many young girls lack information on how to manage themselves during menstruation.
But this is the kind of information that we get on social media,
exactly.
that we get in school countless times. However, you find that a person that got all this information is just lashing it out. So which misinformation is that?
That is why we have the issue of we need to disseminate correct and accurate information about some of these topics. You find that the internet has a lot of information on it. A lot of it is just propaganda. A lot of it is inaccurate information. So we have to get the right channels. And by the right channels, I mean peer educators, we mean counselors, we mean health workers, trained personnel, senior women teachers, everyone, parents, mothers, teachers, everyone is entitled to this kind of information. So if we work together as a collective effort and make sure that the information we are passing out there is correct and accurate and age appropriate for the young girls on how to manage their menstrual hygiene, we can be able to mitigate these challenges. And also, if we go down there to those rural areas and make sure that we have digital storytelling happening where we are capturing the stories of the young girl, a girl that has no voice, and putting it out there so that we can advocate for the rights of the girls in regards to their reproductive health, we are solving this challenge. Also, things like radio talk shows can be held. We can have radio talk shows around this matter. We can have community outreaches done. We can have school outreaches. And to sum it up, I would say, cooperating with organizations like Faraja, organizations like Arose Institute that really deal in the spaces. For example, we have the Period Equality Network. It really has a lot of young people who are in those spaces dealing around issues of young girl child. So if we work together as a team, I believe we are going to mitigate these challenges. We are going to make sure that young girls are able to access pads. Also, girls should use their parents. They should use their sisters. Talk to your counselors. Talk to your parents, teachers. Do not fear anyone in community. Even your brother, we are having an unpopular male perspective of the male involvement in menstruation. So even the men, we are making this a normal conversation out there. So talk to everyone around you. Silence is deadly. Speak out. Be helped. Get that pad and always make sure you know how to manage yourself the right way. That way we can be able to mitigate the teenage pregnancies caused by the wrong information passed on by the wrong people in community, and also ensure that the girls know how to manage themselves appropriately. That way we're having good menstrual health and challenges are solved.
Thank you very much for that submission. Before we come to the end of the show, would you want to give us your final remarks as a peer educator and as a girl, of course?
Yes, I would. Thank you so much for hosting me today, first of all. I am glad to be here because these things are really, really not talked about, but it's a pleasure to be talking about some of these things today. As I close, I want to encourage the girl child out there to always speak out and reach out to anyone around them, because anyone in the community is a source to you and your menstrual hygiene. Always use the materials around you. Always learn how to manage yourself properly during menstruation. Be clean. Make sure that we fight infections, and that way we can avoid the challenges that are really affecting us, because many people are not accessing their jobs because they cannot access menstrual hygiene, they cannot go to work. So just be clean, come out, speak out, look for help, seek for counseling. Any challenge around menstrual hygiene can be mitigated. Talk to your brothers and let's be clean. Thank you.
Thank you very much. This has been very wonderful to have you here, talk about menstrual hygiene, talk about pads, talk about our health as young girls.
The misconceptions.
Yeah, the misconceptions, the myths, all that. Well, it's very pleasing that a number of organizations have come through to help the Ministry of Health, Ministry of Gender when it comes to the misconceptions, when it comes to menstrual health hygiene of the young girls in different rural areas. Well, this has been a very interesting session. We had Patricia, a peer educator, talk about the different ways and different solutions of how young girls can deal with their menstrual health and menstrual hygiene. Thank you for tuning in. This is the Situation Corner and my name is Elizabeth. Please don't forget to follow us on our social media platforms. That is Faraja Television on Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn and Facebook, all throughout Faraja Television. And also subscribe to our YouTube channel, that is Faraja Television. Have a nice week.